Hello and welcome to Around the World today. I'm your host, Terry Davis, and it's great to have you with us as we kick off a brand new chapter in our series. Over the last 9 episodes, we've been all about transport, railway renationalisation, state owned airports, and the future of mobility. But today, we are shifting our gears for the next 5 episodes. We are going to be exploring something a little different. We, yet no less fascinating, we are diving into the world of the British overseas territories and crown dependencies. Now, some of you might be wondering, what are the British overseas territories? What are the crown dependencies? How are they connected to the UK? What role do they play on the world stage? Well, that's exactly what we'll be exploring in this episode. We'll also look at how things in these regions differ and the sometimes complex relationship they have with the United Kingdom. We'll be talking about the histories, the role they play today, and what challenges they face as we move deeper into the 21st century. So let's get started. First, let's start with the basics. The British Overseas Territories, or often shortened to BOTSs, BOTS, are a collection of 14 territories spread across the globe. They are scattered in different parts of the world, from the sun-drenched Caribbean to the remote waters of the South Atlantic, and even the icy wilderness of the Atlantic and Antarctica, These territories remain under British sovereignty. God save the King. But they are not part of the United Kingdom itself. They have their own governments and constitutions, although the UK is responsible for their defence and international affairs. In contrast, we have the Crown dependencies, which include the Channel Islands, Jersey and Guernsey, and the Isle of Man. Unlike the overseas territories, these regions are much closer to home. Located in the waters around the British Isles, they also have a unique relationship with the UK, as they are technically not part of the UK or the British Overseas Territories. Instead, they are self-governing possessions of the British Crown. And while the UK is responsible for their defence and international relations, they have significant autonomy in managing their own affairs, practically their own legal and tax systems. Now, let's take a little closer look at the British Overseas Territories first. Ooh. The British Overseas Territories have a long history that's deeply intertwined with the era of British Empire. Many of these territories were established during Britain's period of exploration and empire building in the 16th and 17th centuries. And I'm sorry if I sound a bit aggressive when I'm doing that, but it just helps with this. Because, yeah. Many of these territories were studied. As the empire expanded, Britain set up colonies and military outposts across the world. Today, these territories range from well-known places like Bermuda, Gibraltar, and the Falkland Islands to smaller, remote isolations uh, and locations like the Pitcairn Islands, South Georgia, and the Sandwich Islands. But especially fascinating about these territories is their diversity. Some, like Bermuda, an economic powerhouse acting as global financial centres. Others, like the British Antarctic Territory, are scientific hubs where researchers study climate and biodiversity. And some, like the Falkland Islands, have been the focus of global tensions. Remember the Falklands War between the United Kingdom and Argentina in 1982? Even today, these territories play a key role in British foreign policy, military strategy, and environmental conservation. But despite their differences, they all have one thing in common. They've chosen to remain under British sovereignty, even though many former British colonies have gained independence during the 20th century. So, why are these territories important today? Well, they're important. It can't be broken down into several key areas: strategic, military value, economic significance, and environmental protection. Take Gibraltar, for example, strategically located at the entrance to the Mediterranean Sea. Gibraltar has been a key naval base for the UK for centuries. It controls access to one of the world's biggest shipping lanes, making it of huge global importance. We'll be looking at Gibraltar in a later episode. The Crown dependencies, the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man. Now, that we've got a handle on the British overseas territories, let's switch gears and talk about the Crown dependencies. Specifically, the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man. Unlike the British overseas territories, the Crown dependencies are not remnants of the British Empire. Instead, they have a unique history dating back to the feudal era of the Middle Ages. The Channel Islands, for example, were once part of the Duchy of Normandy, and their connection to the British Crown goes all the way back to William the Conqueror in 1066. Do you know, I remember learning about 1066 and William the Conqueror in school. My history teacher, lovely woman, Miss Hanford, I'm actually friends with her on Facebook, but it's quite shocking. But lovely woman. I always remember learning about and castles. It was like the first year of history. Anyway, the Isle of Man has its own ancient history with the, oh gosh, Trinod, its legislative assembly claiming to be the oldest continuous parliament in the world. Both the Channel Islands and the Isle of Man have a distinct constitutional status. They are self-governing jurisdictions with their own laws, tax systems, and elected governments. However, they are not sovereign nations, and the UK retains responsibility for defence and international relations. Their economies are largely built on financial services, tourism, and e-commerce. And in recent years, both the Crown dependencies and the British overseas territories have attracted attention for their tax regimes. Many of these jurisdictions offer lower tax environments, which has led to them being labelled as tax havens. That's tax havens. By some critics, this has prompted debates in the UK and internationally about the role of these territories and dependencies play in global financial system. Now let's dig a little deeper into the relationships between these territories and dependencies and the UK. While they enjoy a high degree of autonomy, they still depend on the UK for certain key responsibilities. The most obvious is defence. If a territory is under threat, it is the UK's job to step in. The Falklands War is the most famous example of this, when British forces defended the Falkland Islands from Argentine invasion in 1982. But it's not just defence. The UK is also represents these territories and dependencies in international diplomacy. They are not recognised as sovereign nations. They rely on the UK to negotiate treaties and represent their interests on a global stage. This can sometimes lead to tensions. Practically, when it comes to self governance, some territories like Gibraltar and the Falkland Islands have regularly debated the level of control they want to maintain over their own affairs, while ensuring they remain linked to the UK. But it's not all smooth sailing. These regions face significant challenges. Many of these territories are vulnerable to climate change, partially the low-lying Caribbean islands, which are at risk of rising sea levels and increasingly powerful hurricanes. Others, like the Pitcairn Islands, face related challenges to population decline and economic isolation, the future relationship, and new opportunities. As we move deeper into the 21st century, the British overseas territories and current dependencies remain as an evolving story. These are ongoing debates about their constitutional status, their role in global finance, and their responsibilities in combating climate change. But one thing is certain: they continue to play a key role in shaping Britain's global influence, even as the world around them changes. Over the next few episodes, we'll dive into some of these regions. We'll explore Bermuda's role in the financial hub, Gibraltar's strategic importance, and how territories like the British Virgin Islands are dealing with the effects of climate change. So stay tuned as we journey through the world of the British overseas territories and crown dependencies, uncovering the hidden stories and connections that link these fascinating regions to the UK.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.
I'm Terry Davis, and this has been Around the World today. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, where we'll be taking a deep dive into Bermuda. Until next time, thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Around the World today. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favourite podcast platform. Catch new episodes every week and stay connected with us for more global insight